Everyone, how's it going? I've written a piece today, and I've really been kind of working on my my kind of string sound, I guess. And I found a combination of instruments which I think are pretty pleasing. I'm using some performance sample instruments, some Cinematic Studio solo strings, and the new Crow Hill Company's glass strings as well in this work. This is written for a sync brief. I've written a lot of really aggressive electronic digital kind of music. So it's been really nice to write something which is basically just in one mode and for strings and uses about 7 notes in it. This is a very simple piece. This piece is not going to change the world, but what has kind of changed my world is the string sound of this. So the piece is kind of finished and sort of programmed, but I still need to do things like kind of mix it and add reverb and sort of really finish it off. I'm going to show you what I've got first of all though. So we've got from Performance Samples, their Pacific Solo String Violin Legato patch. I've got a couple of instances of them here. And then we've got the same Pacific Solo Strings from Performance Samples and their Cello Legato patch. And then finally from Performance Samples, once again, their Vista 2 Solo Cello Legato. So we've got a couple of solo cello patches on the go. This is my favourite solo cello patch for legatos. Just to note, I'm only using the close signals for all of these. So when you hear this in a couple of seconds, it's going to sound a bit empty because we haven't had any reverb, and I'm just using close signals so I can mix this all later, and you'll see this in the video a little bit later on. So those are the instruments from Performance Samples. We've got, 6 solo string instances there from Performance Samples, and then we've got Cinematic Studio solo strings, their quartet essentially, and I'm blending this with, or using it with the Performance Samples patches. And with Cinematic Studio strings, I'm just using the close mic mostly, and a very small amount of the main in each of them as well. That's a sound which I'm quite enjoying using. Then we come to glass strings from the Crow Hill Company, which I've only had for, a week or so, and I'm really enjoying using it. And actually, I'm using this for its sustain sound. I think the sustain sound of this library is really beautiful and really usable. And for this type of piece, which I'm having to write very quickly, it's been really pleasing to use. So I'd recommend checking it out. I've done a few things here. I've turned off the close and the ambient mics, and I'm just using the wide sound. I've made it wider than normal, just because my ear was sort of telling me it needed that sort of sense of it kind of subsuming, sort of enveloping the solo strings. I've turned the release up quite a lot as well. It's playing a very chordal texture all the way through. Actually, it is basically just stating the harmony. This is a really simple piece. This chord sequence in the opening, which is only 4-part harmony the whole way through, is what you hear the whole way through the piece. I've written a lot of very kind of angry, aggressive electronic digital music recently for this ballet that I'm writing, and it's been quite nice to just write something which is just in one mode for 3.5 minutes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of mixing this and getting some reverb and panning and kind of finishing this off, because right now, because I'm just using the close signals of the instruments, and I haven't done any panning, it's quite dead really. So come with me as I kind of show you how I'm going to finish this work off. I'm going to play you a couple of bits first of all though, so you can kind of hear what it sounds like before I do any kind of processing. This is the very opening. It starts with just the Crow Hill Company sustains, just playing these really simple 4-part chords here. Okay, in those sort of 8 chords, you've heard the harmony of the piece. It doesn't do much else, but simplicity is good. I'm really enjoying using this instrument. There is one thing which is slightly annoying about it. It's beautiful, it sounds great, but is that when I record in using my controller, it also prints in these separate automation channels, which at the same time as modulation is an expression. So I have to go through and delete each of these if there's any way of changing that or turning that off, please let me know. Anyway, that's kind of the opening. And then we get this very simple cello melody. And this is the melody that's heard all the way through the piece coming in. So this is the Pacific samples, Performance Samples Vista 2 with Crow Hill Company Glass. Okay, so you can hear that that's really needs a lot of processing, a lot of help, but the sound of just the close mic on its own is just stunning. Hyper realistic, really, really great, and it doesn't take a huge amount of programming to make it sound kind of as good as that. And I love the rawness of the sound as well. It sounds great. So skipping forward to this next section, we've still got the same chords underneath. We're being joined by some Cinematic Studio solo strings and the other instance of Performance Samples Vista 2 as well. So it sounds like this. Oh, I love just using one modality for an entire piece. Okay, and then I've added in some Abbey Road basses. Obviously the Cinematic Studio solo strings don't have a bass patch, and I just wanted to add this in later, so we have the addition of some kind of weight behind it. Okay, and then let's just skip on to this part here, which is kind of getting towards the climax. Again, this is kind of a full, what is it, a dectet of strings? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yeah, 10 strings from Performance Samples and Cinematic Studio solo strings, and I think they blend together really well, I think. Okay, so that gives you a kind of flavour of where the piece is at. There's not much definition. Everything is very mono. Everything's down the centre. So the first thing we're going to do is balance this. So what I've got here is I've got a kind of a template of reverbs that I just load in straight away, which I'll kind of explain as I put them in. I have got a little bit of processing on the go. I've got a little bit of EQ. Very, very subtle EQ in some places. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to load in an instance of Panbox. Let's just kind of cycle an area here where all the strings are going to be, and we'll just work in this area. Panbox is what I use for all my panning. You get so much control over it, and it just really kind of helps me as a composer, not a mix engineer, place a sound in the stereo field. And most of the time I just use tonal pan and smart pan. So for now, what I'm kind of, my plan here is to spread the 6 performance samples instruments kind of fairly wide. So I'm thinking the furthest to the left, the Pacific Solo Violin Legato 1 will be like 70 to the left, and the Vista 2 will be 70 to the right. It might be a bit wide. And we're going to change the width of some of them as well, just to make them feel a bit bigger. So anyway, this is just soloed Pacific Solo Violin Legato 1. Really recommend headphones for this if you happen to be listening. If I take that out again, very mono. And if I put it in, when I listen to this, it really sounds much more like it's coming from my left, which is what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just go through and pan all the rest of these kind of to taste. So we're going to get back round to 70 on the right on this side. So that's kind of the thing that I'm sort of aiming for. So 70 here, maybe 40 here, 40 here, 20 here, 20 here, something like that is kind of what I'm doing in my head. But obviously it's all kind of to taste. And obviously whatever my ear sort of tells me. So here is the next one. Let's see if we can get to a part where it's coming in. The width really helps as well, just to make it sound a bit kind of bigger. Okay. This one's going to be like 20 to the left. Let's see. Okay, so if I just solo all of these, I'll turn pan box off. So this is it, just everything mono, and then I'll bring it back in so you can see, hopefully, how everything is way more defined and in its own place. Okay, so I think that makes a huge difference. You can just hear every instrument. Every instrument's kind of in its own space, which is really useful. I'm going to do the same thing to the Cinematic Studio solo strings as well. So we'll get some pan box in there, and we'll just kind of do it not quite as wide, just so it sounds slightly different to the performance samples ones. So again, let's just listen to one of these. Beautiful sound. In fact, let's just hear that with the performance samples. Violin, Legato. Really, I'm so happy with the sound of that. And this is before any reverb or anything like that. It's just out the box, and just these close mics sound brilliant together. The eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed the negative delay that I'm putting on here to line everything up. It's a huge number, but if I put the click on, everything does line up. For the performance samples there, minus 120. So huge amount of negative delay. This is one of the big issues with cinematic. The cinematic series in general is that you do need a huge amount of pre-delay, negative delay, and recording stuff in can be quite problematic. But it is totally worth it for the amazing sounds that you get. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point. I've just loved that combination of Cinematic Studio solo strings and the Pacific solo violin legato here. I think they blend really well, and they sound nicely complementary. It does sound like two separate players playing kind of like a duet. So I'm really happy to have these in my armory. Okay, so we were panning. Okay, so that's gone 60 to the left. So we'll do like this, 30 or something like that. Let's. All sounds like it's in the right space. Okay, and again, everything has some definition. Some terrible part writing on the go here. But I literally wrote this all today. Okay, and let's hear the dectet of solo instruments. Okay, great. Half the reason of me filming this is so that I don't spend 16 hours trying to mix this. So I kind of do this within sort of a reasonable time. So if I'm missing stuff, not explaining anything, my apologies. Okay, now we've got the Crow Hill Company. So for the first half, we're using just the sustains, and then in this second part, I have changed it a little bit. We've got the free bowing, which is a fantastic patch. Not using the ambient, but just the close and the wide, so it does become a little bit bigger. Again, the width has been increased. We've got more release, because it just kind of works with this chordal material. And then that's been joined by the Abbey Road orchestra basses, and then I've put a couple of Omnisphere subs underneath just to kind of add some depth. So. Balance is generally fine. We'll probably make changes as we go. But for right now, it's time to do some reverb. So I've kind of loaded in these preset reverbs, which I've sort of developed over time and sort of are part of my template. So the first three here are all instances of Cinematic Rooms Pro, and they are for early reflections only. So you'll notice here that in all three of them, I don't have any of the actual reverb going out at all. I mean, it's a very short one anyway, but I'm literally just controlling the early reflections. So they all have different pre-delays. They all have different EQs. They all have different widths to hopefully give the sense of space. And then we've got another instance of Cinematic Rooms Pro. This is just a tail, 2.5 seconds, with that's pretty much the presets essentially, with not much change made. Those are the algorithmic reverbs that I'm using, and then I've got a beautiful altiverb set up here with Mechanics Hall. I've turned off the early reflections, so it's only the tail of this amazing space that's being heard. And then finally, for kind of extra options, I have this this plate from Sound Toys, which is my favorite plate. I think it sounds great, and I think I will use on some of the solo patches. But for right now, let's just start with the first violin, and let's just we want it to be close. We want it to feel intimate, so I'm going to send it to bus 10. The tail and the room. And we're just going to set these all up as pre-faders as well, so that I can I could actually send the signal to the reverb and not have any dry signal at all. So I've got really good control over the real sound and how much dry signal compared to reverb there actually is. So let's just start, and let's just get a sound of this violin going here. That's the close reflections added. Just puts it hopefully in the space. And then this is the Cinematic Room's tail. Again, just a taste. Always good to stop and just listen to the reverb. And the altiverb. The altiverb's doing the majority of the work there. Without. And with. So it sounds hopefully already like it's kind of going into a rich kind of space. I also, just as a side note, have all the reverbs set up as VCAs so that I can mute them very quickly, or I can change the levels of them afterwards. And also have all the close signals set up on a separate VCA, so I can later on just kind of decide, do I want it more reverb heavy, do I want it wetter, or do I want more close signals? So I can do that later on. So I'm going to go through and listen to each of these and add reverb to them, again, just to taste. As a cheat, what I'm going to do is copy this channel strip setting and paste the sends only. But I'm going to turn them all down for now, so that I really am starting fresh. So we don't just start with the same. Okay, so we can listen to all of these. Firstly dry, so I've muted it over on the VCA. So this is them dry, and I'm just going to chuck in the reverb. Let's follow them. I think that sounds beautiful. Yeah, it's got a lovely decay to it. Again, might change it. I might turn things up and down a little bit, but for a starting point, this is good. Okay, so here, now moving on to Cinematic Studio solo strings, I'm going to paste in the sends again, but I'm going to change this to midverb. I want to have a sense of the Cinematic Studio solo strings just being in a slightly different space to the more soloistic performance sample instruments, just so they feel like they're a little bit set a little bit further back in the studio, perhaps. So they're being sent to this mid early reflections, just so it just sounds like they're coming from a slightly different space. Okay, so let's just start adding some mid early reflections, tail, and room. Okay, sounding nice. And then here are the solo strings, so the string dectet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn overall the altiverb down a tiny bit, because it's doing quite a lot of work. I'm pretty happy with that sound. That sounds good. Okay, let's move on to the glass strings. I'm going to paste in the sends again, but this time, rather than bus 11, I'm going to send it to the far early reflections. Doesn't seem to make sense. So here it's got the shortest pre-delay. This should give the sense of the Crow Hill Company strings being at the back of the hall, hopefully. We'll bring it all down. We'll just put it in manually. Let's go from the beginning for this one, because they come in here. Here's the first instance. So this is just the sustains that we're looking at here. And let's just hear that with the solo cello here. I think I need to actually just turn up this. I know I should have bounced these all down as WAV files and mixed it this way, but life's too short. That, I have to say, sounds fairly good, I think. You can tell me otherwise in the comments. And let's go from here. Okay, great, and let's deal with these. So again, this is the mono sub, and the basses, they are going to go, again, to the back, the far fib, and we need to do this other instance of Crow Hill as well, so let's do that one first. Okay, I'm generally pretty happy with that sound. I think overall it's quite rich. The instruments sound like they're kind of in their individual places, which is great. And this is a quick mix. There's not much we need to do. We're going to go to the stereo out, and we're going to do some things here. So we're going to start off with an EQ, just to let's just start playing back. We're going to get rid of just some of the low rumble. Then we're going to put in a compressor as well. We're going to put on an SSL. And what we're aiming for is 3 or 4 decibels of gain reduction. Let's just go to the loudest part. Then we're just playing with this threshold so that it kind of sticks there. We're going to set it to very slow attack, very fast release, and 2 to 1. So it's really just kind of tickling the sound. There's a wee lump in there, which I might sort out later before submitting it. But for right now, let's carry on. So all I did there was take out a little tiny bit of just low rumble. I could even take out a little bit more because it's not like we've got heavy percussion to deal with or anything. You can't really hear it, but it just helps clean up the signal a bit. And the SSL just to kind of glue stuff together. And then we're into some more kind of, I don't know, fun, colourful things. So I quite like Oxford Inflator, just to kind of add a bit of heft. Oxford Inflator is just really good at just adding some really subtle harmonics and just kind of making it sound a bit more cohesive as a string section. Hopefully, should have put on another EQ. The Manly Massive, because it is really great at just adding some brightness, just very subtle kind of stuff. So. That's like 16K now. And with these string libraries, there's always some kind of harshness around 3K. So I always just like to have a little cut round about there. The last thing I'm going to do to finish this mix is I'm going to put this Ampex master tape on it. And what I really like, particularly with strings, is this vintage analog warmth. Here it is before. Here it is in. Okay, and that is, I think, it for now. So all I've done is I've done some panning, added some reverb, and added probably too much on the Mixbuss, but what can you do? I'm going to play it back now. I might speak over it a little bit. This piece didn't exist before like midday today, and it's now 20 past 8 at night. So, you know, this has been a very quick turnaround job. And yeah, I suppose that's just part of parcel of being a composer is just write something to brief. Also in the comments, let me know if you know what piece this is sort of inspired by slash based on. Anyway, here's the playback of this. I might make some notes as we go. this is another example of where, if I had more time, I would really sort out the legatos in Cinematic Studio solo strings, but they take a long time. You could hear there's some lumps in this with the legatos, and it would just take a long time to kind of program and get it right. Okay, so not a perfect piece at all. Very extremely simple, probably too simple. Could have done with a change modality somewhere, but equally, this is what the brief was, to write a piece which essentially does one thing for like 3.5, 4 minutes. And I hope that I've kind of done that. It basically has like one set of chords and one idea. Thank you so much for coming along. Let me know if you've got any questions or comments. I'd be happy to get back to you. And I hope you found that interesting, seeing how I kind of turn a very basic, simple, unfinished mix and kind of get it ready to send out to the producer of this project. Thank you so much for coming along. Please do give us a little like, give us a sub if you fancy it. Really help us out. And stay tuned for the next one. Thanks so much for coming along. Cheers.